Okay, for these problems, you're looking just like with equations, you're looking for a number that when you plug in, it's gonna work, okay? But now that you have an inequality, you're still looking for a number that when you plug it in, it's gonna work, but it has to satisfy that inequality. So here in this problem, you're looking for a number that when you plug it in for x, and then you add 5 to it, it's going to be greater than 10, okay? So, I mean, you can sit here and start thinking about what are all the numbers that if I add it to 5, it's going to be bigger than 10. And if you start kind of thinking through that, you're going to figure out that there's several numbers that will work. And so, to solve these, just like I had mentioned in the slides before this, you solve it like a normal equation. So to begin with, you're going to act like that this is just an equal sign for the moment. You will have to consider that in certain situations, but for the moment you're going to act like it's an equal sign and you're going to solve it like it's a normal equation. So if this was a normal one, I'd have to subtract my 5, and remember, just like with equations, what you do to one side you have to do to the other, so I'll have to do that as well. And then you simplify, so the x will come down, the 5 minus 5 will go away, that symbol, the greater than symbol, will come down, and then 10 minus 5 is 5, okay? So that means any number that's bigger than 5 will work in that inequality, all right? So that's one way to show your answer, is to write it like that. The other way is to graph it, all right? So if we were gonna graph this, we're looking to show on a number line, we graph these on a number line, we're looking to show that any number that's bigger than 5 will work, okay? So remember, a number line, you have your 0 in the middle, and then the numbers that go this way are positive, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, keep going, 5, that. And then that way are the negative numbers. So this would be -1, -2, -3, so on and so forth, okay? So whenever you're doing these, if you looked at the slides before this, the greater than symbol, if it doesn't have a little equals to underneath it, that is an open dot. So we're gonna start by putting an open dot on the 5. So you put an open dot, and what that means is that you're not including 5 in your answer, okay? Because notice, if I plug a 5 in here, 5 plus 5 is 10, and that is actually not bigger than 10, okay? And so you put an open dot on 5, and then you're gonna show any number that's bigger than 5 will work. And so you're gonna shade in that direction, all right? So there's two ways to think about this. You can think, okay, which direction are my bigger numbers? And I'm actually gonna extend this just a bit. So if I kept this going, this would be 7, 8, 9, so on and so forth. And so which directions are my bigger numbers than 5? Well, that would be this way. So that's the way you shade, okay? Now, sometimes this can get confusing. And so if you do end up getting confused, the trick to this is if you make sure that your variable is on the left-hand side, this you can think of like an arrow, and it'll point in the direction you're supposed to shade. So notice this kind of looks like it's pointing to the right. So then that means you shade to the right, okay? So let's do a couple more. So this one, to solve this one, you would divide by 3, because you got to get the x by itself. So that would be 1, because 3 over 3 is 1. And you're left with x. That'll come down. And then 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that means any number that you plug in there that's less than 4 will work, okay? So notice, like if I plug in a number that's smaller than 4, if I plug in 3 times 3 is 9, and that is a number that's less than 12, okay? So to show that on the number line, go over here and make my number line. I usually will put this number in the middle of my number line, okay, and then I'll put the numbers that are around it. So remember, when you go this way, they get bigger. So this would be 5, 6, 7. And then if you go this way on the number line, they get smaller. So those would be the number in that direction, or the numbers in that direction. Okay, so again, this is a less than symbol. It does not have the equals to with it. So if it doesn't have the equals to part with it, you put an open dot. So I put an open dot on 4, meaning that 4 will not work if I plug it into that equation. Okay, and then I'm going to show that any number that's smaller than 4 will work. So, well, which numbers are smaller than 4? That way or that way? Well, if I look at it, these are the smaller numbers. And if you remember that trick, it's kind of pointing to the left. So that means that you shade to the left. So this shows any number in this direction on the number line will work in that inequality. All right. Last one, to solve this one, the x has the -7 with it. And remember, if there's nothing between them, that technically means you're multiplying. So to get rid of the -7, I have to divide. And you have to do that to both sides. So the reason why I did this one is because notice we are dividing by a negative on both sides of the inequality. Anytime that happens and you're multiplying or dividing both sides by a negative number, you have to do something special with that sign, or that inequality. You have to flip it around, okay? So when we do this, the -7 over -7 would be 1, and then my x comes down. And then because I've divided by a negative, I have to flip that. So that will actually become a greater than symbol. And then I figure this out. So 14 divided by -7 is -2. So that means any number that's bigger than -2 will work in that inequality. So put it on my number line. I usually put that number in the middle. And then you've got to think, the negatives kind of play with you. It's almost opposite of what you would think sometimes. So remember, when you go this way, if you think about the numbers that would be bigger, you're going towards the positive. So this would actually be -1, then you'd have 0, then 1. If you go that way, it's going to get to be bigger negative numbers. So this would be -3, -4, -5, okay? You think about the dot. It doesn't have an equals to, so it's going to be an open dot, meaning that -2 won't work in that inequality. And then you shade. So any number that's greater than -2. So the numbers that are greater than -2 are in this direction. So I'm going to shade that way.